How do I hurry and pause it? All right, hello everyone, welcome to, I guess this is what, number 4 or 5 of our classes. And I'm excited to do this part of it because there's one key word in this unit that has been my word of the year all year long, and it's consistency. So I feel like I was inspired to get this section to go over this because it talks a lot about the importance of consistency and how to improve upon that in our habits. So hopefully as we're talking through this, we'll all glean something on how we can be more consistent in our habits and what we can do to make them more enjoyable, right? So I do have just a little, Jen asked me to share this a little bit, and that is, I started reading a little bit of the James Clear Atomic Habits probably a couple years ago. And I just kind of read sections here or there as I thought that they were kind of interesting. And then this group came on and I thought, you know what, I'll go ahead and read it from beginning to end with everybody. I even got that cute little workbook that comes with it. I don't know if you can see that. There's a kid, oh boy, it blurs everything. Anyway, there we go. It's the workbook for this, and it poses some really good questions. So I'll address some of those towards the end and everything like that for the purpose of having discussion. So just to start off, do all of you have, here's my notes. Do all of you have your goal from the last part that you've chosen and that you're working on? That was from the last one. It said part 3 to pick a goal to work on. If not, be thinking about one. It's okay if you don't, right? We're just going to kind of add on to that, right? Because we've gone over the other parts. The first ones talk about the possibility of us performing the behavior. And then this 4th law increases the odds of repeating the behavior, right? So we don't want to just start a habit. We want to be able to complete it and finish it and complete the loop. So we're just going to go through some of the stories that were in here today and then stop at some of the spots that might be interesting for discussion. Does that sound good for everybody? Okay. So the first story on the cardinal rule of behavioral change is of a man. I'm going to call him Stephen Luby because I don't know if it's like Ruby or Lubby, like rugby. I don't know. Anybody know?
Oh, I don't know, but I wonder what page you're on to.
We are on page in the book 183. It's the 4th law, making it satisfying. Right, the first part was make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and now we're at make it satisfying. Okay, so it talks about this gentleman named Stephen Luby. I'm gonna call him Luby. I don't know why. And that was from Omaha, Nebraska, right? And he went to it says Karachi, Pakistan, and I don't know how to say that either, so just bear with me. So Karachi is, if you read this, is one of the most populated cities in the world. When it said 9 million people, I thought, oh my gosh, this place that's just too many people in one spot. I'm super glad I live in Idaho. But when he got there, right, so it's this huge hub for all these modern advances. And then the 60% of its people are living in an utter gutter poverty, literally. I mean, they're living with no kind of amenities such as running water, waste removal. What were the other things? No electricity, no clean water. And the unsanitary conditions were causing widespread illness and disease, and just children and adults all getting all of these diseases. So when him and his team arrived there, they found this public health crisis, and they were trying to figure out what they could do to help these people. And they came up with hand washing, and I know that that's not a new thing. If you worked in any kind of health and welfare or anything like that, hand washing is a big deal. Solves a lot of problems in a lot of places, but what he found was that it wasn't so much that they didn't know that they needed to hand wash, it's just that they weren't doing it on a consistent basis. And so he and his team partnered with Procter and Gamble to distribute Safeguard soap, which had a much better scent, and it also lathered really nicely. So it was one of those, you know, when you get the nice bars and they just are really lathery, and you lift your hand up to your mouth, your nose, and you're like, this smells good. So it got them some of that, and so that hand washing became more pleasurable, right? It was something that they looked forward to because of the experience that they were having. And so because of this, the challenge was to keep the people continuing to wash their hands, which they did. And then when they went back like 6 years later, these people were still washing their hands because they had created this habit of using a soap that was more satisfying to them. And in the process, it says within months, they saw a rapid shift in the health of children in the neighborhood. The rate of diarrhea fell by 52%, pneumonia 48%, and impetigo, which is a bacterial skin infection, by 35%. Those are huge shifts in the public health just from one simple thing of washing hands, but not just washing hands, but making it enjoyable for them, right? And so that's what we're talking about with this. Is there's a line in here that I like. It says, pleasure teaches your brain that a behavior is worth remembering and repeating, right? So if it's not enjoyable to us, then our brain would say the opposite, that it's not worth remembering and not worth repeating, right? So then it also gives us the story of Wrigley's chewing gum and how they became the largest gum producers in the world because they added spearmint and juicy fruit, which I love juicy fruit flavor. It's so good. Added that to it and made the whole thing of chewing gum a pleasurable experience, right? And so it says in here, positive emotions cultivate habits, negative emotions destroy them. So if like when you're eating, I don't know any of you that have tried those Harry Potter beans, the jelly beans, when you get a gross one, do you want to try another one? I don't know about you, but I got the boogers one. It's so gross. Anyway, but I can understand that. So it made me more leery to try any more of the beans after I'm like, oh heavens no. But then you get a good one and you're like, oh yeah, I think I can try another one, right? This reminds me of the Harry Potter beans, but let's see. So we want to make sure that when we create these habits that we're creating something that has an immediate satisfaction to us, okay? So I thought this was really interesting of the breakdown of the human brain, because sometimes for me to like get on board with things, I have to understand the how and the why things work in order for me to stick to it. If I don't, then I'm likely to maybe just not give it the weight or the merit that it deserves because I don't understand it, right? And so I just like this part. It talked about how, you know, animals live in a more immediate return environment. They're only concerned about the present or the very near future. That's their whole daily actions, right? And then for humans, for thousands of years, that was the same too. They only thought about how they were going to survive and how they were going to get their food in the near immediate, right? But then in the last, I guess they said about the last 500 years, we've entered into a more delayed return environment, which means the things that we do right now, we don't really see the results of for a while down the road, right? Like saving money for retirement, it says, or if you exercise today, you won't be overweight 2 years from, you know, a year from now if you create that habit, right? And so the problem that we find is that there's this time inconsistency where our brains, the neurocortex of our brains that was developed to form language and everything, sees the inconsistency with that. So if we're not getting an immediate reward for it, our brains don't want anything to do with it, right? So we all know that living on instant or gratification is not going to get us very far in life, and it's not going to probably make us very happy either, right? So he talks about in here some of the things that we can do.
Can I read the quote that was, I think you.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Put in another.
What page are you on?
189.
Okay.
In the middle. The cost of your good habits are in the present. The cost of your bad habits are in the future. It's exactly what you're saying.
Yep.
I just really liked that because it's like having it written out like that. Like really thinking about how important it is for me to make the habits that I've created. Some of them I'm kind of getting sick of. And so it's like, oh, I got to really like make them more rewarding so that I can continue to do them. So
absolutely. I like that. I underlined that one as well. Up higher, it says, with our bad habits, the immediate outcome usually feels good, but the ultimate outcome feels bad. With good habits, it's the reverse. The immediate outcome is unenjoyable, but the ultimate outcome feels good, right? So let's see. I just think, like you're saying, that it's powerful to think of it that way, because often we don't think in the moment because of our brains that we're living in the present. We don't think about that. And I like this. If you go just a little bit further down the page, it says, when we choose the instant gratification and when it wins, we are choosing our present self over our future self. And that was super powerful to me, that the decisions that we make were in the immediate we're choosing our now and not our future. And I don't know. I just think that that was super powerful, because when it talks in here about aligning with our true self, right? With our identity, right? And so our identity is who we want to be and who we want to become and who we are becoming. And when we're choosing things in the present that aren't allowing us to become that, then, and we're choosing our self now over our future self, it's no wonder that we get a little dissatisfied with things, right? And with life, if we're choosing those things, because we're not going to achieve the goal that we're setting out to achieve or become the person that we want to become, right? Anyway, it's not a good trade, I guess, is the phrase that I remember from a movie. It's not a good trade. I don't even know what movie that's from, but anyway. Okay. And I like this too. I don't know if any of you have read the book, The Road Less Traveled, but I like the road less traveled is the road of delayed gratification. If you're willing to wait for the rewards, you'll face less competition and often get a bigger payoff. As the saying goes, the last mile is always the least crowded. And I think that that's totally true. It talks about just all of the blessings of delayed gratification when we implement it in our lives. That people have higher SAT scores, lower levels of substance abuse, lower likelihood of obesity, better response to stress, and superior social skills. I thought of those, and those are all really positive things. They're all things that I would think, for the most part, that everybody would want to have be considered intelligent, not have addictive behaviors, be healthy, right? And be able to self-regulate and have really good social skills. So, I mean, those are all pretty powerful. Let's see. What it also says here that I found super positive, which is on 190, about 2/3 the way down. It says, thankfully, it's possible to train yourself to delay gratification. So if it's something that you're not super good at right now, it's okay. It's something that you can get better at and that you can improve upon. And if it's something that you already do really well, oh, bless you. That's amazing, because it's definitely something that I struggle with sometimes. So, but I loved that encouragement that it's possible to train ourselves, but that we have to work with our human nature, right? Which is our brains, and our human nature is to want instant gratification. So how do we turn to, it says how to turn instant gratification to your advantage, right? And in a perfect world, it says the reward for a good habit is the habit itself. But for most of us, we need a reason to stay on track, right? There's got to be something that makes us want to stay on track. So finding the right reinforcement helps us tie our habit to an immediate reward, and then it makes it satisfying when we finish. So this is just really powerful. The more a habit becomes part of your life, the less you need outside encouragement to follow through. Incentives can start a habit, identity sustains a habit, right? So we have all of these things that I guess it's just important that our goals align with our true values and things like that. Because if they don't, we're never going to have enough incentives that are going to help us to keep a behavior going if we truly don't believe it. Like if we really don't care if we have I don't know, extra pizza or whatever, like if that doesn't bother us, stuff like that, and then we get on this, well, I'm gonna not have any carbs and stuff like that, but you don't really care, it's not gonna really matter much. You're gonna find yourself in that situation, and you're gonna have no willpower, to or motivation to stick to it, right?
One of the things that comes to my mind too is in the beginning, he was talking about creating evidence for whatever it is. Like every time you do something and along with the consistency that it's creating that identity. So I feel like that follows there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody else want to chime in? Please chime in if you'd like. The more the merrier. Okay, so that's it with this one. So like it says, the first 3 laws of behavior change that we talked about earlier: make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy, increase the odds that a behavior will be performed this time. The 4th law of behavior change, make it satisfying, increases the odds that a behavior will be repeated next time, right? Which is why the whole reason we're setting it is because we want to change, and we want to become better, and we want to do better. So the next chapter, chapter 16, is how do we stick with good habits every day? So the first example that it gave was of a man named Trent Dearsmid, who just had this simple habit of moving paper clips from one jar to the next for how many calls that he needed to do a day. How many of you guys have done something like that? You want to share with us what that was? What the particular goal was?
It was not paper clips, it was marbles. And I listened to a talk from a coach. She was her name's Brooke Castillo, and she has a podcast, and she called it the urge jar. And she would take 2 jars, and every time like she resisted an urge, like if she went in the kitchen and she was gonna get something out of the fridge and she really wanted it, but she didn't want to eat it. And if she resisted the urge, she took a marble and put it in to this urge jar. And every time she was moving these marbles over for not taking it. And so I listened to this podcast and I tried it at home, and it like really helped me, because it sounds so silly and elementary of like marbles or stickers or something like that, but like something that you're actually touching and moving as you see that jar fill up, it's like satisfying and rewarding, and it makes you want to like get more marbles. I don't know, it was really cool. I love that podcast. I can try to find it and share it with you guys if I can.
I listened to that too, Amy, and it was really good. And one of the things that I remember from that podcast too is she talked about how the sound of the clinking correlation with your brain, and that like there's like a lot of in-depth stuff about that. That's really cool.
It's that instant reinforcement, right? That we're talking about there. I think it's the same. I think back to the potty training chart for my son when he was little. We had these rows of stickers, and then at the end he got a reward, and every time he made it to a certain level, he got a little bit bigger reward. So it started out as a little piece of candy, and then it grew up to be like a nice size sucker, and then money that he could take and spend somewhere. And just being able to get to the end of that and getting that reward, man, that's all it took for him. And he was potty trained pretty quickly. And I know not all kids work that quickly, but that one worked for him. but it reminds me of that too. I also did one where I put on my refrigerator just a real simple grid off of Excel spreadsheet that were squares that were for 16 ounces of water. And then I had these little black magnets that I would move over every time I finished a bottle onto the grid. And it was so simple, but every time I went in the kitchen and I saw that chart and I saw that I had moved my magnet over, it was really satisfying, like really rewarding. Anyway, so that's the one that I did that was effective for me in helping me to focus on drinking more water throughout the day. Okay, so good. So the paperclip strategy, I think that that's very similar, right? So all of these visual measurements, they come in a lot of different forms. They can come in the one that we just talked about, charts, food journals, other kinds of things, which all boil down to, you know, being a habit tracker, right? One way that we can track that we're having success or that we did the habit that we're trying to learn, right? And I like this part on how to keep your habits on track. So it brings up Benjamin Franklin. You know, he had a lot of really good attributes that a lot of people like to emulate. I like that he had a list of values, of his 13 top values, and he would kind of rate himself every day on how he did in all of those in a notebook and record his progress. And the same with Jerry Seinfeld, how he made it a habit to write something funny or try to write something comedic every single day, right? And his phrase was never break the chain. And I was thinking, I just saw a clip on Chris Martin from Coldplay, right? And he plays music every single day for the same thing. It's the habit, and it helps to stimulate your creativity. And it doesn't so much matter if you're putting out your best work, or like it says here with Jerry Seinfeld, that his jokes were even funny. But what mattered was that he was showing up and adding to his streak. So it says here that habit tracking is powerful because it leverages multiple laws of behavior change. It simultaneously makes a behavior obvious, attractive, and satisfying. So it just breaks it down into some steps, right? So who wants to talk to us about how habit tracking is obvious?
Well, I love that question, but can I say one thing real first?
Sure, go ahead.
I wrote down, and I loved that they said perfection is not always possible, but never miss twice. So I do like how having that habit tracker, you can see the progression or the routines that you're getting in to make that consistent. And as you follow that tracker, you're able to see that it's getting better and better. And that's what I like about the visual of it.
Yeah, I'm really visual like that too. I like that. Thanks for bringing that out. That it isn't about perfection, it's about showing up, right? And developing the habit. It says it's about developing the habit more than it is being perfect at what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Thank you for bringing that up. Super important. So I think a lot of us struggle with perfectionism and feeling like that we have to be perfect at something. So I guess I can throw this in right now, just really quickly before. So I took a kickboxing class back in the fall from like October to December, and it kicked my butt. It is so hard. If any of you have taken a kickboxing class, it is really a lot of fun, but at the same time, it was super, super hard. And there were days that I showed up and I felt like I was crying through the entire thing, because just to take all that energy to complete all the steps, it was just, but at the end, when I was done, it was like so rewarding. Like I felt so good when I was done, but I felt so crappy a lot of times while I was doing it, because I just didn't have, it just is hard. And, you know, hard things take a lot of work. And I was finally able to push myself through it. And I completed the entire 6 weeks, which was amazing. And I lost 15 pounds in the 16 weeks, which I thought was really amazing. And one of the perks from doing it too is I felt like it let out a bunch of, like, You know, they say sometimes you do somatic exercises and they help to release whatever feelings that you've had built up inside of yourself for so long, right? I just felt like so much freer when I was done with all of that, but it was super hard work. Anyway, it'll go along with some of this other. So let's talk about how is it obvious? So one of the things it says on here, let's see.
I like the visual too, that he was talking
Yeah.
about using the jar. Like that's a
Yep.
example. And I thought I should use that in my business. Like the thing is it's hard for me to keep up with it. Like I've kind of started like the 60/60 tracker or a couple other types. And that's one thing that I thought was so fascinating of why he said in the book, he didn't put this habit tracking in the beginning, because it's one more thing that can kind of take you back from that habit. And so I was like, oh, that is so interesting. Like, don't just like when you're teaching people, like have the foundation first before adding a tracker. I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it is good because you really are doing two habits at once, right? Like he says. And it is good to have that visual. I like here too that seeing the mere act of tracking a behavior can spark the urge to change it. So in the effort and the action of doing it, we're actually encouraging ourselves to continue to change this bad habit or to improve or to gain this habit, right? So I like here too that it also says that habit tracking keeps you honest. I hadn't really thought about that before, but yeah, sometimes we think, oh yeah, I'm doing really great with this. But then if we were tracking, we would see, you know what, I'm not doing so great with this, right? That's me sometimes being punctual. I don't know if anybody else struggles with that, but that's one for me, punctuality. And so sometimes when I track it, I'm surprised because I always think I'm doing better than I am, but I'm not. So anyway, so that's one way too. So to make it obvious. And then the other one is habit tracking is attractive, right? It gives us a small win that then feeds our desire. So I have on here that progress equals motivation. Small wins feed our desire. Have any of you found that to be true in your progress with your habit? Any of you too?
I'm trying to even compute that. Each small win feeds your desire. I guess, yeah, you would say something, Amy. Your turn.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Like I don't really have a certain habit I'm working on. I'm kind of working on all of them. I should probably narrow it down and just like pick one. But I started the gratitude habit today, and I because I just got that book, The Magic. I don't know if y'all have read that, but it's like that by The Secret. And it was like 28 days of habits, and I've done like the gratitude book where you have to list 3 things, but this one you have to write down 10 things every morning that you're grateful for, but you can't just write down what you're grateful for. You have to write down why you're grateful for it. So you have to write more of like a sentence or two about each thing, because it's important, they said, for you to like connect with, like if you just say, I'm grateful for my bed, you know, that's great. But if you have to say, well, because I know it gives me good sleep at night, and then I'm not so moody the next day because I slept well at night. So you have to really connect with it. But I started that book because I'm trying to do a bunch of habits, but I feel like I need to focus on one at a time. And I know that like they say like the gratitude is the key to happiness. And right now I've kind of been feeling this tug of war between feeling like a little bit of like not so much unhappiness, but just kind of stressed and like that feeling like you know. So I know that like that's what I need to really focus on. So I'm glad I started this book, and that's my habit, what's going to be my habit for the month, and just try to like narrow it down, because I'm always trying to like improve in a bunch of areas. But I think that's true about momentum. Progress creates momentum. Is that what you said? Yeah, like just doing it one time today, I'm excited to do it again tomorrow. So
Exactly. That's perfect. That's exactly what it talks about. And when we feel that, it's a win, right? And that's what it says in here, that as humans, we want to win. It's just built into our nature. And so I think that's awesome. That's a great thing to do to expand upon that habit of going further deeper into why it is that we're grateful about things. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see. It says here, it says that habit tracking is visual proof of our hard work, and that it's a reminder how far we've come, right? Sometimes we get frustrated about where we're not on our journey, or where we're not at where we had hoped to be, right? But when we can look at our trackers and things like that, we can actually see how far that we've come, and that can then help to stimulate our desire to continue to work forward towards that goal, right? Because sometimes we can get discouraged if we're not quite getting the results and any, with whatever habit it is that we're working on, because just sometimes it's harder. So yeah, those things, that having it to be a motivation is a really good thing, and helps to keep us interested in working on the goal, right?
One of the things that I think about when you were saying that is like, I just think about my back and how I've really tried to work on strengthening my core, because like for the longest time, I didn't know what the issue was, that I was just in pain a ton. And then I finally got an MRI and don't have a disc in part of my back. And so
Oh my goodness.
once I found that out, then I was like, okay, I know how to, like, what can I do instead of what can I do? And just building that core strength is just taking so long. But then I think, well, what if I had none? Like, it would seriously directly affect my pain levels. And so that kind of keeps me motivated to keep going too.
Yeah. That's super hard when it's physical pain like that. Because sometimes you don't get the instant, you get it gradually, little bit at a time, right? Instead of like all at once and no pain. I know my mom's kind of in a similar situation with her back surgery that she had too. So that's really good. Because you're right. If you hadn't had done what you've been doing so far, then you wouldn't at least have the strength that you have now, right? You can't get something from nothing, right?
Yeah. And we have about 4 more minutes.
Okay.
And like anywhere you want to take it. But one thing I really loved 201 when it talked about perfectionism in 2 areas. Maybe we're going to cover that anyways. So
Sure. Go ahead.
well, okay.
Huh? Oh, you mean on the recover quickly down to how to break our habit when our habits break down?
Yeah. So it was saying, you don't realize how valuable it is to just show up on your bad or busy days. Lost days hurt you more than successful days help you. If you start with 100, let's see, the first rule of compounding, never interrupt, it's unnecessary. So this is why the bad workouts are often the most important ones. Sluggish days are bad workouts maintain the compounding gains that you accrued from the previous days. And then it says, furthermore, it's not always about what happens during the workout. It's about being the type of person, again, this is like coins in the bucket, towards a person who doesn't miss workouts. And so I just really had thought of perfectionism when he was talking about that.
Which makes it value-based, right? And part of our identity. Yeah, I really like that too. Those are all the same parts. The other part to that at the top was never miss twice, right? So if you do miss, get right back on track. If you do go out and eat a big fun dinner with everybody, hey, get back right on track the next meal, right? Don't miss twice. It said if you miss once, then that can be an accident. But if you miss twice, then you're starting a new habit, right? And that is pretty powerful. And it talks a little bit about making sure that we're not measuring the wrong things. Oh, is that? Oh, how funny. We want to make sure that we're not measuring the wrong things, right? We optimize for what we measure. When we choose the wrong measurement, we get the wrong behavior. And I think that was an important part about this, is we want to make sure that our goals align with our values and with our identity, so that we're not working on the wrong thing, right? We don't want that goal and our tracking, the target, to become the focus. The focus is who we're becoming, right? And it says when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure, right? When we're striving to achieve the target instead of the desired behavior. I thought that was super powerful too, because I've noticed that too, when you get so focused on, you know, like at work, everybody has to turn in the safety documents and stuff like that. And we get focused on who has all of their papers turned in, when in actuality, it's not that at all. The important part is that every associate is getting trained on the safety thing, right? That's the goal, is at the end that every associate that we train has the safety training. It's not so much the chart, right? So if we focus on the chart too much, then it can take away from the real purpose. And people are like, hurry and get it turned in, instead of focusing on that everybody's making, that everybody understands what the safety measure is, right? Anyway, thanks you guys. I don't do this very often, but I appreciate the opportunity. We've lost some people, and I know I'm not super entertaining all the time, but I do feel like this discussion, there was some good things on here, and thank you for sharing your examples and everything. So I hope you
100%.
are finding success with your goals.
Thank you. And I'll just mention that next week, on week 6, we're going to be doing reading pages 251 to 299. Stephanie's going to run that one. It's at 4:30, July 18th at 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.